Thermopylae, the last stand in Greece. I could hear the Persian army before I could see it. The ground trembled under the weight of men, horses, wagons, and the hard rhythm of thousands of feet pushing toward our narrow pass. We had chosen Thermopylae because it was supposed to strip Xerxes of his greatest advantage, numbers. For 2 days that choice worked. Then word came that someone had shown the Persians a path around our position, and I remember the change in Leonidas's face when he understood what that meant. We were no longer holding a gate. We were standing in a trap. In the summer of 480 BCE, Greece was bracing for the second Persian invasion. Xerxes had crossed into Europe with an army so large that even in my lifetime people argued over its true size. Some said it was endless. Others, wiser men, said no army could truly be that large. What mattered to us was not the number itself, but the fact that it was big enough to crush any Greek city that faced it in open ground. So we looked for a place where land itself could fight for us. Thermopylae was that place. The pass was narrow, pinched between the mountains and the sea, with hot springs and rough ground that made movement hard. A great host could not spread out there. Cavalry lost room to maneuver. Archers could still shoot, but they could not simply swallow the enemy in a flood of arrows and riders. If we held the choke point, we could force Xerxes to come at us front to front, where a smaller force might stand. I was one of the Greeks gathered there under King Leonidas of Sparta. We were not only Spartans, as later stories like to say. There were men from other city-states too, brought together by necessity more than trust. Some came from Thespiae, some from Thebes, some from Corinth and elsewhere in the coalition. The Spartans were the most famous among us, and they carried that reputation like armor. But on the first day, what mattered most was not fame. It was discipline, shields locked tight, spears leveled, and orders passed down in a voice that did not shake. Leonidas was calm in a way that made the rest of us look louder. He understood the pass and the politics around it. Sparta had its own reasons for standing there, but this was also a Greek effort, one city trying not to fall alone while the others bought time. We were there to delay the Persians long enough for the rest of Greece to prepare, and maybe to force Xerxes into paying dearly for every step. When the fighting began, the Persians came on as if they expected us to break quickly. We watched their ranks press into the narrow ground, and the first rush found no open space to exploit. Our hoplites met them shield to shield. The bronze faces of our helmets, the scrape of wood and iron, the dust kicked up by feet and spears. All of it closed the world down to the width of the pass. Men fell, but the line held. The Persians tried again and again. Their troops were brave, and there were many of them. But the pass denied them the room their leaders wanted. We used the terrain to our advantage. The front rank took the weight. The men behind replaced the tired and the wounded, and the line kept cycling. I remember how strange it felt to fight an army that seemed to never end, and yet to see them fail to turn us. By the end of the first day, they had learned what the ground would not let them do. The second day was worse for them, and heavier for us. Xerxes was not a man to accept delay easily. He had expected fear to clear the pass, or a quick victory to open the road south. Instead, he found a barrier of men who knew exactly why they were there. We held again, not without loss, not cleanly, but we held. Then came the report that changed everything. A local Greek named Ephialtes was said to have revealed a mountain path that ran around our position. I did not see him myself, but I heard the news as it moved through camp like cold water. A trail through the hills meant the pass could be turned. It was the one thing the terrain was supposed to prevent. If the Persians got behind us, Thermopylae stopped being a defense and became a pocket. No matter how hard we fought the front, the rear would be lost. Leonidas had to decide quickly. He dismissed most of the allied Greeks. That part of the story has been argued over since. and I cannot claim to know every word he spoke. But I know the result. Most of the coalition withdrew. Some were sent away. Some left because there was no point in dying where survival could still serve Greece elsewhere. The remaining force stayed with Leonidas. The Spartans are the names people remember most, but others remained too. We knew the next fight would not be about holding ground for reinforcements. It would be about buying time with our lives. Before dawn, the air felt still in that narrow corridor. The sea was on one side, the hills on the other, and between them the place where so many men had already fallen. We formed up tighter than before, because there was no room for anything else. Leonidas had chosen the final stand, not because he believed we could win, but because once the pass was being outflanked, retreat under pressure would only turn into slaughter. Better to meet the Persians where the line still made sense, and take as many as we could with us. When the Persians came again, it was not the same battle anymore. We were fighting with knowledge of the trap closing around us, and they were fighting to finish what the path had made possible. The front assault began as before, but now the noise behind us mattered as much as the enemy in front. Men on the higher road had already done their work. The pass would not hold much longer. Leonidas moved us forward, not back. That was the hard lesson of the last hours. In a narrow place, the side that loses space loses the battle, even if its men are still standing. We pushed where we could. Spears snapped. Shields split. The front ranks of the Persians took the worst of it as they tried to force a way through, and then more of them came on, and more still. At some point, the fighting became close enough that a spear mattered less than a knife, then less than a shield edge, then less than the press of bodies. Leonidas fell in that final struggle. I will not pretend I saw the exact moment with perfect clarity. No man in such fighting sees everything. What I know is that our leader was dead, and the men around him fought to recover his body. That alone tells you how desperately the battle had become about honor, position, and survival all at once. The Persians wanted the pass. We wanted to deny them even the satisfaction of taking us apart in an open rout. By then, the rear threat had become real. The outflanking force had reached the Greek position. Once that happened, there was no tactical mystery left. We were caught between the men in front and the men coming down from behind. The remaining Greeks fought where they stood. Some made for the wall and the narrowest ground. Some died clustered around Leonidas. Some were cut down trying to force space that did not exist. In a battle like that, numbers matter most when the terrain finally stops protecting you. I do not remember fear as a single moment. I remember the practical things. The weight of the shield. The way sweat and dust made the grip slick. The sound of men calling for one another in a place too cramped for clear orders. The shock of seeing the line that had held for 2 days finally broken from the side. That was the real collapse. Not one dramatic charge. Just the understanding that the pass was no longer ours, and that the battle had already been decided by the road over the hills. When it was over, the Persians controlled Thermopylae and could move deeper into Greece. Xerxes had won the field, but the victory was not simple. He had spent time, men, and reputation to force a narrow road that should have been easy for him. We had lost the pass, but the delay mattered. It gave the Greeks more time to organize, and it fixed Thermopylae in memory as something larger than a lost position. What stayed with me was how quickly the battle turned once terrain stopped protecting us. For 2 days, the pass did exactly what we hoped. Then one route, one disclosure, one movement through the hills changed everything. That is the part later generations often miss when they turn Thermopylae into a simple tale of courage. It was courage, yes, but it was also geography, timing, a hard fact that even a good defense fails if it can be turned. The dead were not just Spartans, despite what many people later said. Other Greeks died there too, and the coalition itself was part of what made the stand meaningful. Leonidas and his remaining men chose to stay once the surround became clear. and that choice gave Thermopylae its lasting weight. It became a symbol in Greek memory, not because we won, but because we did what soldiers are sometimes sent to do, and what cities remember longest. We delayed a stronger enemy, paid in blood, and left behind a story that outlived the defeat. Thermopylae became a Greek symbol because a lost past can still change a war, and a final stand can shape how a people remember themselves. Thermopylae remains a lesson in how terrain, timing, and sacrifice can outlast even a Persian victory.